Welcome back to AP US History. We're looking at the Progressive Period in Chapter 21. This is Part 2. Uh, Robert La Follette, who was the governor of Wisconsin, instituted a number of reforms, both socially and economically and politically. It was often called the Wisconsin Experience. Probably have to know that for the AP exam. They frequently asked questions about reformers, and he certainly could come up. He tried to control monopolies within the state, particularly railroads, lumber companies. He did various things. He regulated public utilities to make it fair for all. He removed the spoils system and went more to a civil service exams, meritory appointment to office, not based on who you knew, but what you knew. He instituted what they called direct primaries, where citizens of the state voted for the politicians for different offices in the state. And again, he introduced the initiative, which gave people the right to introduce bills that they created and got signatures for, and then a vote would be taken. They also came up with a referendum, which said that voters would decide on new laws rather than the state legislature. Recall, if you wanted to remove somebody who was incompetent or corrupt, you could remove them with a recall vote. These initiatives, many of the things that they did in Wisconsin are going to be patterned in other states. This is a picture of Fighting Bob. Somewhat of a William Jennings Bryan, a great orator. He got people kind of wound up, and he would deliver his speeches at political rallies, state fairs, whatnot, asking for reform. One of the things that the progressives are going to get is the 17th Amendment, which said senators, rather than being elected by the state legislature, would be elected by the people. Now, this is one of those things that was pushed for by the Populist Party. Another initiative or another point that the Populists wanted to see instituted from their Omaha platform was secret ballot, the Australian ballot, and that was brought about. And that's the way it is in every state of the Union today. No one knows how you vote, and all senators are elected by the people. Reduced the power of political machines, reduced voter bribery. Unfortunately, illiterate voters suffered because party workers could not help them mark the ballot if they couldn't read. My contention is if you can't read, you probably shouldn't be allowed to vote. Teddy Roosevelt is going to be the first president of the United States that is going to look out for the public interest. He supported the progressive movement, many of the things, and he played a significant role in world politics. He was given the vice president's job under McKinley as kind of a way to shut him up and kind of keep him in the background. But the people who were trying to eliminate his voice in politics were in for a rude awakening when McKinley died, because he'll serve out the rest of McKinley's term and serve one more. He supported a strong army and navy, part of this imperialist idea that Alfred Thayer Mahan was talking about, that we needed to have a strong army and navy if we wanted to be a great power. He instituted what he called the Square Deal, which regulated corporations, protected consumers against faulty equipment or products, price gouging. He also believed in conservation of natural resources. So you could say the Square Deal was really 3 C's: corporations, consumer protection, and conservation. So those things were part of his Square Deal. But he's going to use his bully pulpit as president to push his agenda. And he'll go about America convincing him that we need to move in a certain direction. This progressive period, again, will last for about 25 years, 20, 25 years. One of the things that Roosevelt attacked was monopolies, unfair competition. Um, he also passed the Elkins Act of 1903, which imposed heavy fines on shippers who and railroads that offered rebates. Everyone would be charged the same rate. And this was under the Interstate Commerce Act, and the Commission was supposed to regulate that. The Hepburn Act 1906 expanded the power of the Interstate Commerce Commission, which could decide between good trust or monopolies and bad trust. 1906 passed the Meat Inspection Act, mainly because of what Upton Sinclair exposed in his novel The Jungle. And now we have people going around as inspectors to make sure that the meat supply is sanitary, not diseased. The Pure Food and Drug Act 1906 handled mislabeling. Products could not claim more than they would deliver. Unfortunately, we still have people manufacturing things even today that claiming things that aren't true about their products. But this was a step in the right direction. The Newlands Reclamation Act 1906. This was to fund irrigation projects and land conservation. Established the first national parks in America. He was an avid outdoor hunter and sportsman. He wanted to set aside land in America, particularly the West, that later generations would be able to enjoy. Another accomplishment that he succeeded in starting was the Panama Canal. He's not going to be in office when this is finished, but certainly he's going to be the primary mover. Some of the national parks that we have, all three of these parks are well known. Yellowstone Park, Yosemite, Sequoia National Park, Yellowstone being in Wyoming, and Yosemite and Sequoia National Park being in California. Roosevelt builds the Panama Canal. After we secured Panama's independence from Colombia, we signed a deal with them that allowed us to build the canal. Under Carter's administration in the 20th century, the canal will be given back to the Panamanians. When Roosevelt leaves office, his hand-picked successor is Taft, and he will continue on with the reform movement. He was more known probably for his reform in busting up trust. He wasn't as strong a conservationist or consumer protection as Roosevelt. Also didn't push for women's rights as strongly as Roosevelt. The election of 1808, and Taft is going to become president of the United States. Pretty much status quo, things pretty much the way it was. The unfortunate thing for Taft is he's going to fall out of favor with Teddy Roosevelt because Teddy Roosevelt doesn't believe he's as strong a reformer as he needs to be. He had no reformers in his cabinet. And rather than use a big stick diplomacy, that is, when we were talking about imperialism and Teddy Roosevelt, that is, exert our might, Taft was more into exerting our dollars and investment. If you didn't play along with American policy, we'd make sure that American dollars were not funneled into your economy. Although Teddy Roosevelt gets a lot of credit for busting up trusts and monopolies, 90 suits were brought against various monopolies trust in his 4 years, and he did a great deal to get rid of that unfair competition. He adopted a policy, a rule of reason. Only reasonable strain of trade would be authorized. So not everything needed to be destroyed, the monopolies. Taft and Roosevelt will have an unhappy split, and this will prompt Roosevelt to run a third term as a Republican. He failed to get the nomination. As a result, Taft will get the Republican nomination. Roosevelt will establish the Bull Moose Party, which is a third party. It's a minority party in the United States. And this will split the Republican vote, and this will give Wilson a chance to win the White House in 1912. So this new nationalism sought continued regulation of trusts and labor organizations. This is under Taft. He gave lip service to women's suffrage. He wanted lower tariffs, social reforms, graduated income tax to tax millionaires in America, a minimum wage, and an end to child labor. So you would have to say that there were some things that, Teddy Roosevelt is going to push, which Taft would not have pushed. So this was this new nationalism. Remember, Teddy Roosevelt had the square deal. Well, he's going to have the new nationalism when he runs for the president for the Bull Moose Party. The election of 1912, here were some of the candidates. Taft for president. Taft was determined to defeat Teddy Roosevelt and preserve the conservative heart of the Republican Party. He was not a great progressive in a lot of other areas other than busting trust. Come, Mr. President, you can't have the stage all the time. Well, he was a heavy man, and he did a little verbose and liked to make himself known to the public. Seemed to overshadow other things on the agenda. As far as the Republican Party and what they were pushing for, Republicans, again, protecting businesses by increasing the tariffs, put a limitation on female and child labor, worker compensation laws. In case you were hurt, you get some kind of relief. They were against the initiative referendum and recall that came out of Wisconsin, that experience. They were against bad trust, but some trust could state. They also created the the creation of the Federal Trade Commission, also to help business stay on the gold standard. Conservation of natural resources, because they were finite. Well, certainly they gave lip service to that. The GOP, after the circus, the Republican convention essentially split the party, and they'll be vulnerable to the Democrats under Wilson. And so he had a lot of, this is a badge of the Bull Moose Party. People should rise up above their sectarian interest to promote the general good. That is, people in different sections of the country should be concerned for the whole country, not just their part of it. He certainly pushed this new nationalism. Big business required big government. Now, he believed that governments should take an active role in regulating businesses in America. So no more laissez-faire. Some said that he shouldn't run for a third term for president because of it had been established by Washington and others to not run more than 2 terms for president. But there was nothing keeping him from doing that. And we'll stop right there, and we'll pick this up next time.